a lot is going on overseas that is impacting us here in the United States as well as other developed countries around the world, particularly things that are happening in China. They're having a big problem with the fact that nobody's buying their stuff anymore. Their exports have dropped dramatically. They have empty warehouses, empty factories all over the place. Part of that is that American companies and other countries' companies have been moving out of China over the last 2 years. They've been moving them anywhere. They've been moving to India. They've been moving them to Vietnam. They've been moving them to the Philippines. They've been moving their factories anywhere other than China. But in addition to that, people are tapped out. They can't buy any more stuff. And so stores are not putting in orders to Chinese factories right now. And that is killing them right now. But in addition to that, their housing market is starting to collapse. And last time this happened, the Chinese government came out and moved a giant bailout package. A lot of people call it the bazooka package. Everyone's kind of been expecting them to do that. Because if the Chinese markets start to drop dramatically, it's going to take down the rest of the world's economies as well. Why is that? Well, a lot of investments are being made into China. China owes a lot of money to other countries. I know we talk about China having a lot of the United States debt, but it works both ways. Chinese companies have borrowed a lot of money from U.S. banks, European banks, and from American investors. A lot of retirees have developing world and international funds and stuff like that. But the secret about these ETFs and these package deals like Vanguard and stuff like that, a large majority of the investments they are making in those packages are actually into China. So people don't realize how exposed they are to China. If you have international ETFs, why they've done so well over the years is because they've been investing in China. That's where they've been making money, so they just keep investing more there and more there and more there. And a lot of these balanced portfolios, they're supposed to be investing in the whole world, the whole developing world and emerging economies and stuff like that. Really, they're just investing in China. And they have a lot of Chinese debt, and they have stock in Chinese companies, and it's really unhealthy because the Chinese economy is starting to implode right now, and the Chinese government, President Xi has come out and said basically they're not planning on doing a bazooka. They're not planning on doing a major bailout. Why? Because they don't want to run massive deficits for the government. Isn't that fresh? I mean, someone who's actually concerned about deficits. It's crazy. These guys out there are just, they've lost their minds. You know what I mean? Why don't they just keep printing money like the United States and like the European Union? I don't know what they're doing. But anyway, so they've decided to take a couple smaller step actions, and everyone's kind of like, they were expecting the bazooka. They were expecting all this stimulus. They were expecting cut interest rates. They're expecting all this liquidity, all these funds to flow into the markets and to prop up all the stock markets around the world. And that hasn't happened. And it looks like it's not going to happen. And so these shadow banks that are imploding over there, they're corporations that kind of function like banks, but they're not technically banks. They're imploding because they are heavily invested in these high-rise apartment buildings that aren't selling. And they're stuck with them. And they built them for this cost, and they can't unload them for even this cost. And they're stuck. And they're running, and they've run out of capital, and they can't pay their loans right now. These banks are imploding one after the next. And President Xi is sitting back and just not doing anything, so to speak. Now, they're doing little things here and there, but they're not doing what everyone expected them to. And so everyone's been banking on the Central Bank of China, as well as the Chinese Communist Party, to just go nuts and just start throwing money at the problem like all the Europeans and United States bankers do. But they're not doing that. And that's kind of catching everyone by surprise. That's part of the reason I know Apple had some bad stuff happening over in China, and that's what they were saying yesterday was about. But really, I think a lot of what's been happening over the last couple of days in the markets has been people are just, they were really banking all this free money coming from China. And now that they don't have all this free money coming from China, they're kind of surprised and realizing maybe we should start protecting ourselves because we're not ready for this. Also, we're seeing out there that China is loaning billions, Chinese banks are loaning billions and billions of dollars to Russia. Russia is under tremendous sanctions from the United States and other countries, mostly the United States and the countries that the United States has twisted their arms at. But China is starting to send lots and lots of money into Russia. So you're seeing this arms deal going down with North Korea, and then you're seeing a lot of money coming in from the outside. It's really starting to impact world markets. People who are involved in production of materials overseas have been working their tails off to get out of China, and that is for sure. And this whole decoupling of our economies is looking like it's going to hurt China way, way more than the United States, because we've had this time to decouple and our companies are slowly moving to better places or different places. It looks like American companies are going to still have their cheap labor, but just in different countries, more diverse countries, and not all in Chinese cities and Chinese places where they're doing all sorts of nefarious things like running gulags and stuff like that. All right, so no bazooka out there from President Xi. And the big question on everyone's mind is, with the giant flooding all over the Beijing area and the surrounding provinces, where it's just devastated crops. We have drought zones down the south as well as up in the north. So you got bands of drought across these farmlands, and then you have this massive swath of flooding because 2 typhoons came in and just dumped on Beijing. But apart from that, you have just crops are looking bad across the whole country. Their manufacturing is looking bad across the whole country. And oil prices are up. So really, all this is coming together to be like a really bad year for President Xi and the Chinese Communist Party. And so the question is how desperate are they going to be? Are they going to be desperate enough that they're going to just hunker down and just focus on their domestic problems? Or are they desperate enough that they're going to have to find a distraction from the outside where they're going to make an external enemy, whether that is Taiwan, India, or the United States? And it's not looking like it's going to be India, because they just started kissing and making up at the BRICS meeting. India and China signed an agreement for respecting the demilitarized zone, basically up in the mountains where they get into scuffles and they beat each other with sticks. I never really understood that. Like, their soldiers don't bring their guns into this zone, but they bring sticks, and then they get into these giant fist fights. They push each other off cliffs. It's crazy. I mean, people die. I mean, they get hundreds and hundreds of guys from both sides coming in there and beating each other and punching each other and pushing each other off cliffs, like I said. And it's just crazy. You just kind of like, what? They have guns. Why are they doing this? It's just, but Chinese keep trying to build new stuff, and the Indians don't like that. Anyway, so they've signed an agreement kind of to make a little bit more peace, at least a little, so that there isn't going to be as much strife. There isn't going to be as much pushback on that border, so they can free up those troops to go somewhere else, either to keep the internal peace inside China, or potentially, and that's the big concern, is are they going to try to do something with Taiwan? Now, I know a lot of people out there are like, are they going to invade Taiwan? I don't think they're going to move to invasion of Taiwan. I think what they would probably do is if things start hitting the fan over there, what they're going to do is they're going to actually blockade Taiwan. They're just going to surround Taiwan with ships. They're going to just cut off all supply, make it so that no ship with any insurance policy is ever going to go into that area. And that's going to just start starving out Taiwan. They're going to run out of fuel because they only have so much fuel in store. And then it's going to be up to the United States to try to break the blockade, which is going to be a really dangerous thing, and that's going to be a real test of nerves. And I don't think the Chinese are going to back down on that either. They may put out sea mines or whatever. You know, they're playing chess, and they realize it's best to make the United States be the aggressor, make them attack the Chinese, and let the Chinese play defense. So That's kind of what it looks like. I think we'll see at some point. And the thing with that is a blockade of Taiwan can happen at any time of the year. Whereas an invasion of Taiwan, they probably are going to want to invade during optimal landing and invasion times. They're not going to want to do that during the winter. They're not going to want to do that during the early spring. It's just not favorable. I mean, it's just really, really difficult to do this type of operations. But if they blockade the island, they can just starve out the island and then force them to engage diplomatically into a discussion and then get them to agree to a reunification of some sort. One China, two systems kind of policy kind of thing, and then eventually just try chipping away at that. Or they can, after they blockade them, they can eventually try invading them later. But I don't think they'll try to do a surprise invasion. You can't amass that many troops without the satellites seeing that. That's just not possible. You can't get the ships in place. You can't get all that stuff going on. If you tried something sneaky, it'd be really risky, and President Xi cannot survive a Bay of Pigs type issue of them trying to smuggle troops into Taiwan and trying to do it like that. No, if he does it, he's got to do it in such a way where he's guaranteed success. And that's why I think a blockade is actually much more likely. If they can trump up some kind of charges, accuse Taiwan of sinking one of their ships or something like that, doing something that really aggravates them or something like that gets the Chinese population really worked up and gets some plausible deniability out there in the international stage, then they can move and get their ships to encircle Taiwan. And honestly, all they have to really do is just start sinking some freighters out there, freighters and oil tankers off the coast of Taiwan, so that no company would insure these ships going into a quote-unquote war zone. They can do that with aircraft, they can do that with submarines, they can do that with sea mines. They don't actually have to have their ships out there all the time. They may want to have their ships out there all the time, but they may not want to either. So a lot of people looking at China very concerned. Is this a spark of World War III? Is this a spark of the markets kind of come collapsing down? I talked about this yesterday, about how I really see that things are lining up for the stock markets to come crashing down. And this is one of the big components out there, is that China is refusing to dump stimulus money into the economy to bail out all these banks. So thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.